the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, episode 92.
Welcome to the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, powered by R Squared Global.
Welcome to another edition of the Global Energy Leaders Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Ray. So good to have you on today. And today we talk to the folks from the Heartland Institute. Now, if you remember, we had on Isaac Orr just a few episodes back. We'll link to that in the show notes. But the Heartland Institute, they are having an event on November the 9th in Houston, Texas. I will link to it in the show notes. It's americafirstenergy.org. That's americafirstenergy.org. And so today we talk about that and what's going on at that event. I'm really excited. As you will hear, they have Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke, who will be in attendance and closing out the program. And so without further ado, here is Jim Lakely to tell us all about that event. Well, Jim, on episode 78, we had on Isaac Orr from the Heartland Institute, and now we have you on to talk about your upcoming conference, which is America First Energy Conference, which will be in Houston, Texas, November 9th, and we're glad to have on Heartland again. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just great.
Well, this email...
Nice to be on the program.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on. Well, the email caught my attention a few months ago. I saw that you guys were... I'm on your email list, and I saw it come out, and obviously, President Trump has talked about America First Energy, and so you guys are kind of basing your conference around that. And so what is the... Obviously, that's the thesis, and I'm assuming that you are saying that President Trump is going for those goals and is accomplishing those goals, or are you saying, hey, this is what he said, and actually we want to discuss where he's falling short at?
Well, it's a combination of both, I think. The election of Donald Trump as president offers an opportunity I don't think anybody listening to your program thought was possible just about 12, 14 months ago. And that is to accomplish the goal that Donald Trump has put out there to not just make America energy independent, but to make the United States a global energy power once again. We are standing beneath our feet. There's enough oil and natural gas for at least 200, maybe 350 years of powering our nation. And previous administrations, certainly the Obama administration, but even the Bush administration before that, was pretty reluctant to go after it. There's that whole leave it in the ground movement. Well, Donald Trump's leaving those people in the dust, and we're going to take that energy out of the ground, or at least that's what he says he wants to do. And the Heartland Institute thought it was incumbent upon us to put on a conference to bring together the leading scientists, economists, energy experts to talk about the agenda on energy that the president has laid out. And so part of it is to talk about his proposals, but also, there's a little bit of holding him accountable. We're going to bring together these people. They're going to look very closely at his plan, and we're going to say, look, you promised to do this. Let's do it. We need to make America a global energy power again, and we can do it. And he's made a couple, he's making moves in the right direction, but just like anybody, they need encouragement.
Absolutely. And it looks like you guys are going to have, I think it's 8 panel discussions that will be going on through the day. Who are some of the names and some of the topics we can look for if someone were to attend the conference?
Well, it's interesting. We confirmed just last week, and this is actually breaking news for the Global Energy Leaders Podcast. Our keynote speaker, it's a one-day conference on Thursday, November 9th, and our keynote speaker is going to be Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke.
Oh, wow.
And this is a big deal because one of the things that was holding America's energy was the Obama-era idea that we shouldn't be exploiting the natural resources on federal lands. Fracking, the whole fracking revolution happened despite President Obama's best efforts to tamp it down. He didn't on much federal land. He relaxed it here and there, but didn't really embrace it because he didn't want to irritate his base on the environmental left. Zinke's the perfect guy to talk about. What does the future of energy exploration on federal land look like? Why is it important that we not leave that stuff in the ground? What does that mean for even bringing revenue when you're leasing the mineral rights underground? What does that mean for revenue generation? And so we're very, very excited about Secretary Zinke to be giving our closing keynote speech of November 9th.
And again, that is Thursday, November 9th. It goes from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., so it's going to be a long day, but it's going to be worth it, as you just heard the keynote speaker. We've talked about him on the show before, and that was a big topic of discussion early on in the Trump administration was, what was going to happen with the federal lands. And, there was some debate, actually, is, how much of a good thing would that be to open the lands up, especially with oil prices, a little bit. They're stable now, I guess you could say. We're looking from 42 to 52 type range. But there was some discussion early on. I know a lot of pro oil and gas people were like, hey, open it up. But there was some pushback from people who are pro oil and gas saying, well, you can open them up, but is that really going to help the overall oil and gas economy? But I'm sure we'll have some insight on that. And it's at the JW Marriott Galleria on Westheimer in Houston, Texas, which is the oil and gas global hub, And so if you're in Houston on November 9th, be sure to check it out. So it's going to be, it's an all-day deal. So let's talk about logistics as far, obviously, if you're not familiar with Westheimer, there's plenty of food and shopping in that area. But if you're coming at 8 a.m., you got breakfast, lunch, dinner. What can someone attending expect? Is there meals on campus? Then you bring their own meal? Will you be breaking for meals? What is the schedule for the day?
They're all the meals, so you lunch and dinner, and you can see the schedule. We're still pulling it together, and there'll be more to say about it publicly get closer. By the time people listen to this, I think probably most of it would already be online. But you can go to americafirstenergy.org to sign up and get tickets. And so, you would get 3 meals. You get to listen to, and you get to listen to Ryan Zinke. We'll have panels discussions. We have 2 concurrent panels going. Some of it's going to be on climate science because the Heartland Institute is known globally for our work promoting the research of scientists who are skeptical that human activity, especially when it comes to releasing CO2 into the atmosphere through the use of fossil fuels. We work with skeptics who think that that's not a big problem. That, the globe is warming, but human impact on it, the idea that human CO2 emissions is the driving factor in our climate, our global temperature, is just not backed up by the facts. So if you've wanted expert explanation of that theory, this is the place to be. But there'll be 2 concurrent panels going on. There'll be a little bit of science. We're going to be talking about energy and national security is one of our panels. The cost of excessive regulation. We have somebody who used to work with EPA who will be on that panel as well. We're going to talk about the nexus of energy, climate, and human health. There's been a lot of talk about the so-called social cost of carbon. That is going to be addressed at this conference, as well as a fascinating discussion on just overall the shale oil and gas revolution. Energy and agriculture, the future of coal. I don't know that Houston is really the coal hub of the United States, certainly not. But coal still is very key to the overall energy delivery structure in the United States. And so there's probably not a lot of conferences that deal with that in the way that Heartland will. And so that's going to be a very interesting discussion as well. So, it really is all about where we stand right now in our energy policies in the United States, what opportunities lay ahead of us in the Trump administration, and also kind of the science. Looking at some of the science when it relates to climate and energy policies together, because, again, one of the reasons we haven't, fossil fuels, exploiting our fossil fuel richness here in this country, countering the whole leave it in the ground movement, all of that is based on the idea that the human emission of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is causing a climate crisis. So you can't talk about, making America a real energy power again and not also talk about or debunk, frankly, the idea that human CO2 is causing a climate crisis. So we kind of hit it from every side.
And one of the things we've tried to do on this show is we try to give people a platform and a voice to speak, because so many times in the energy business, especially if you go on the mainstream media, it's talking points, it's short snippets, it's people taken out of context, and people just debating back and forth. And so I appreciate what you guys are doing here, because if you are someone who says, fossil fuels are bad and CO2 emissions are bad, you're going to give them an opportunity to come and hear science, and then they can go back and reach out to the speakers and engage in that moving forward. And I will be there November 9th. I'm excited to be able to attend, and so I'm looking forward to hear what the panels have to say. It's one of these things to where as energy professionals, when we look at the environment and we look at whether you're talking about the environment on the ground or in the air, we want to take that very seriously. We want to protect the environment, but as you mentioned, there's a lot of conflicting data out there, and a lot of stats that just kind of get blown out of proportion. So I'm very pleased to hear that you guys will be talking about that. And when I come back on the show after November the 9th, I will be able to give a report of what I heard and what I thought was good, and talk about the next event. Now, this event, as we mentioned, is November the 9th, and it's only $349. So it's a 12-hour event all day, 3 meals in Houston, $349. and you get to hear two concurrent panels and Ryan Zinke. So it sounds like, to me at least, it sounds like it's a pretty good deal. I mean, I think it's a safe bet that people can come and expect to get their money's worth.
They certainly will. And, one of the things, the Heartland Institute, again, this is our first energy conference, really, one focused chiefly on energy. We're known for our work with skeptics of human-caused climate change. And we've put on 12 international conferences on climate change. And they're all very well reviewed. And the experience of somebody who comes to a Heartland Institute conference is that of a quasi-participant. There's lots of time for Q&A. After every panel, you can talk to these guys and gals who are these experts and get information right from, in conversations with them. You can hang out with them at the hotel bar, certainly, when it is all over. And, maybe there's a chance to meet Ryan Zinke himself. I mean, he's a very personable guy. I don't know if your listeners have ever looked at Ryan Zinke's bio page at the Department of the Interior. But I love the picture of him with his shotgun and his his official portraits. It's pretty cool. And so we're really, Ryan Zinke's our kind of guy. So we really look forward to having him there as well. But it's a place to really learn. It's a place to network. Part of our target audience for this are energy, the energy industry executive, people who work in the industry from the ground or below the ground all the way up. It's a great place to, I think, to examine what is going on right now and to talk about what's going on right now and to talk about where energy policy needs to move in the first term of the Trump administration. We've never had an opportunity like this. This is really remarkable. And so let's get organized. Let's get together. Let's get people that are interested in this topic, who know about this topic, both on our panels and in the audience, and come together with a consensus on what the agenda should be.
Absolutely. So let me just recap what I'm hearing for my listeners and for me, and tell me if I missed something. The Heartland Institute will be holding an event November the 9th, and this event will allow you to hear speakers who are going to give you scientific and logical arguments for what they believe is good energy policy for the U.S. You, as someone who can attend, can take that information, have time to have Q&A, have time to maybe track down the speaker afterwards, or at least email them. You can track them down online as you do anyone nowadays and contact them. And it gives you a basis to either maybe change your perspective, to add on to what you're already thinking about. But it's going to be a discussion, and that's really what we're lacking in the U.S. is we're lacking that ability to sit down and have these discussions. And I think, one of the things about this show is that we've had on people from all over the political spectrum, all over. But at the end of the day, if you hear someone who's in energy and they're passionate about energy, they really just want people to have power, right? And so if we all agree that getting people energy, getting people clean power, getting people electricity so they can eat, they can have shelter, they can have all this stuff is extremely important, then we have somewhere to work with. In a conference like this is going to take that kind of agenda, and then we're going to work out the details. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what you're hearing. And again, one of the things we've put on so many of these conferences, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of talking to people, or talking to our attendees. And I know our attendees get a lot of satisfaction in talking amongst themselves, meeting new people, and really talking to the experts in the audience. The experts on the panels. And believe me, these experts aren't they're not ivory tower people. These are people that work in the industry. These are people who have done research and have spoken and written about energy policy and climate policy for decades. And they were all chomping at the bit. Our program filled up very quickly with some of the best experts around the country because they know the Heartland Institute, one, puts on a fantastic policy-based conference, but also because they know that the audience that they're going to see and meet is a high-value audience. These are people who know what they're talking about and can actually contribute to the conversation in a meaningful way. And so that's the reason we chose Houston, Texas. We could hold this conference obviously anywhere.
Right.
Some people would say you should hold a conference about Trump's energy policy in Washington, D.C. Well, why the heck would we want to do that? I think Donald Trump and his administration needs to hear from people in Houston, Texas. They need to hear from people that are in the energy industry and who know what needs to be done to make America a global energy power again. And so I'm very, very excited about the entire prospect.
Okay, AmericaFirstEnergy.org. It's November the 9th. You can get all the details there. I'm on the website right now. It's a very clean, simple website to navigate. And as you mentioned, by the time this podcast is released, there will be some updates to the website, so some stuff will change and some more information will be out there. And so I'm excited to get to go to this. And so this is my first Heartland event, and so look forward to attending this one and many, many more in the future. And kudos to you guys for getting Ryan Zinke and pulling this off. I'm excited. I love the interview discussion and debate, and so I will be glad to attend and to report back to my listeners what I thought were the takeaways, and look forward to the next one down the road.
Yeah, that would be great. And bring your microphone. I'm sure you'll be able to get some great on-the-spot interviews for your listeners if you have the mobile capability. It'll be great.
Absolutely. Well, we will definitely do that. We will work out some logistics and see what all we can do. And but I look forward to meeting you November the 9th. And for the listeners, we will link to everything in the show notes. AmericaFirstEnergy.org. It's $349. It sounds like a steal to me. AmericaFirstEnergy.org. GlobalEnergyMedia.com. You can go get the show notes. We will link to everything from the Heartland Institute we talked about today. Here also we'll link to Isaac Orr's interview. So if you want to get a little bit more familiar with some of their people that they have on staff, he came on just a few weeks ago, episode 78 of the Global Energy Leaders Podcast episode. And so you can go and check that out as well. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed the discussion and look forward to the conference in just a little bit over 2 months.
I did too, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, powered by R Squared Global.